Periods of American literature refer to the different stages of phases in the development of literature in United States history. Each period is identified by a particular time span, writing style, themes, historical background, and major authors. Hello guys, this is Dr. Bharti Gautam and welcome to my channel. Today in this video I am going to discuss about all the main periods of American literature. American literature is divided into periods to make it easier to study how literature changed over time according to social, political, religious, and cultural developments. For example, early literature focused on religion and survival, while later periods explored freedom, imagination, realism, war, identity, and modern life. Periods of American literature are classifications of literary works based on the time in which they were written and the common characteristics they share. American literature is commonly divided into 8 main periods. Let's get started with the first one, that is colonial period. This period refers to the time in history when powerful nations expanded their control over distant lands and established colonies. A colony is a territory that is settled and ruled by people from another country. During this period, the ruling nation controlled the politics, economy, and the culture of the colony and used its resources for its own benefit. Colonialism is the policy or practice of a powerful country establishing settlements in other regions and governing them. The main aim was often economic gain, political power, and expansion of influence. European countries such as England, Spain, France, and Portugal created colonies in many parts of the world, including India, United States, Canada, and several regions of Africa and Asia. In the context of United States, the colonial period usually refers to the years 1607 to 1776. It began when the English established the first permanent settlement in Jamestown in 1607. During this time, settlers from England came to India to build new communities. These colonies were governed by Britain and followed British laws and traditions. However, over time, conflicts grew between the colonies and British government. This conflict finally led to the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Another important example is the British colonial period in India, when British Empire controlled India for nearly 2 centuries. The British first came as traders through the East India Company. Gradually, they gained political power and ruled large parts of India until the country gained independence in 1947. The colonial period had several important characteristics. First one is the foreign rule. The colony was governed by another country. Then economic exploitation. Colonies provided raw materials and wealth to the colonizing nation. Then cultural influence. Language, religion, and customs of the colonizers spread in the colonies. Then settlement of people. People from ruling country moved and settled in the colonies. Social and political changes. Colonial rule often changed the structure of society and government. In literature, especially in early American literature, the colonial period included writings produced by settlers. These writings were often religious, historical, or practical in nature. Many writers described their experiences in the new land, their religious beliefs, and their daily struggles. One of the well known writers of this time was N.A. Bradstreet. He was considered the first published poet in colonial America. Another important figure was Jonathan Edwards, whose sermons reflected the strong religious beliefs of the period. The colonial period was an important phase in world history when powerful countries expanded their control over other lands. It shaped political systems, economies, cultures, and even literature. The effects of colonialism can still be seen today in languages, traditions, and social structures in many parts of the world. The period, which was not only important in political history but also played a crucial role in shaping the early identity of American literature, and that was Revolutionary period. It refers to the time between 1765 and 1790, when American colonies were struggling for independence from British rule. During this time, writers used literature as a powerful tool to inspire people, spread revolutionary ideas, and unite the colonies against British authority. The Revolutionary period is closely connected with the American Revolution, which eventually led to the establishment of the United States as an independent nation in 1776. The literature written during this time mainly focused on themes such as freedom, independence, democracy, national identity, and resistance against oppression. Writers, political leaders, and thinkers used pamphlets, essays, speeches, letters, and poetry to express their views and influence public opinion. This period developed as a response to increasing tensions between the American colonies and Great Britain. After the 7 Years' War, that is from 1756 to 1763, Britain faced huge debts and began imposing heavy taxes on the American colonies. Laws such as the Stamp Act, Townshend Acts, and Tea Act angered the colonists because they had no representation in the British Parliament. This situation led to the famous slogan, "No taxation without representation." As tensions grew, resistance movements began to appear. One important protest was the Boston Tea Party in 1773, where colonists threw British tea into Boston Harbor to protest unfair taxation. These events increased the conflict between Britain and the colonies. Eventually, the conflict turned into a full-scale war known as the American Revolutionary War. During this struggle, literature became an important means of spreading revolutionary ideas and encouraging unity among the colonists. Revolutionary literature began mainly with political writings. Pamphlets and essays were the most common forms of writing because they were easy to print and distribute among the public. These writings explained the reasons for rebellion and encouraged people to support independence. Many writers used simple and powerful language so that ordinary people could understand their ideas. The main aim was not only to entertain readers but also to persuade them and motivate them to join the movement of freedom. The most important document of this period was the United States Declaration of Independence, 1776, drafted primarily by Thomas Jefferson. This document declared that the American colonies were independent from British rule and emphasized the natural rights of human beings such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The literature of the Revolutionary period had several distinctive characteristics that made it different from earlier colonial writings. First one, political and patriotic nature. Most writings of this period were strongly political. Writers aimed to defend the cause of independence and criticize British policies. Literature was used as a weapon to support the revolution. Secondly, emphasis on freedom and liberty. The central theme of revolutionary literature was freedom. Writers emphasized that all human beings are born with natural rights and should not live under unjust authority. Thirdly, simple and persuasive language. Unlike earlier religious writings, revolutionary literature used clear and direct language so that common people could understand it easily. Writers wanted to influence public opinion. Fourth, development of national identity. The revolutionary period helped Americans develop a sense of national identity. Writers encouraged people to think of themselves not as British subjects but as citizens of a new nation. Then, influence of Enlightenment ideas. The literature of this period was greatly influenced by the ideas of the Age of Enlightenment. Enlightenment thinkers believed in reason, individual rights, and democratic government, which strongly influenced American revolutionary writers. Several influential writers and political leaders contributed to the literature of this period. First one was Thomas Paine. One of the most powerful voices of the revolutionary period was Thomas Paine. He was a political writer whose pamphlets inspired thousands of colonists to support independence. His most famous work was Common Sense, published in 1776. In this pamphlet, Paine argued that the American colonies should separate completely from Britain and establish their own independent government. The pamphlet was written in simple language and quickly became extremely popular. It sold thousands of copies and helped convince many colonists to support independence. Another important work by Paine is The American Crisis, a series of essays written during the Revolutionary War. The famous opening line of the first essay reads, "These are the times that try men's souls." This writing encouraged soldiers and citizens to continue fighting for freedom. Second was Thomas Jefferson. He was one of the most important political thinkers of the Revolutionary period. He was the main author of the Declaration of Independence, which became a cornerstone of American democracy. Jefferson's writing emphasized natural rights and the idea that governments derived their power from the consent of government. His ideas were influenced by Enlightenment philosophers such as John Locke, who believed that people have natural rights that governments must protect. Jefferson's writings helped establish the philosophical foundations of United States. Thirdly, it was Benjamin Franklin who was a famous writer, scientist, diplomat, and political leader. His writings played an important role in shaping early American thought. Franklin's most well known work is the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, which reflects the values of hard work, self improvement, and practical wisdom. Although much of this work was written later, it reflects the spirit of independence and individual achievement that characterized the Revolutionary period. Franklin also contributed essays and articles promoting unity among the colonies. Then it was Patrick Henry who was known for his powerful speeches supporting independence. His famous speech, delivered in 1775, includes the well known line, "Give me liberty or give me death." This speech strongly inspired colonists and encouraged resistance against British rule. Then Phyllis Wheatley was one of the first African American poets in the American literature. Her poetry gained recognition during the Revolutionary period. Her work often expressed themes of religion, freedom, and human dignity. Wheatley's success was significant because she proved that African Americans could achieve literary excellence despite living in a society that practiced slavery. Then John Adams. He was an important political leader and writer of the Revolutionary period. Through his essays and letters, he supported independence and explained the need for a democratic government. He later became the second president of the United States and played a key role in shaping the nation's political structure. Now, the literature of this period appeared in several forms. First was pamphlets. They were short printed booklets that discussed political ideas. They were cheap and easy to distribute, which made them very effective in spreading revolutionary ideas. Then speeches. Political speeches were very important during this time. Leaders addressed large gatherings to inspire people to support the revolution. Then essays. Many revolutionary writers expressed their ideas through essays in newspapers and magazines. Then there were letters. Letters between political leaders also became important historical and literary documents. Then poetry, although political writing dominated this period, poetry was also written to express patriotic feelings and revolutionary enthusiasm. Several themes frequently appear in the literature of revolutionary period. First was freedom and independence. The most dominant theme was the desire for freedom politically from British control. Then equality and human rights. Writers emphasized the idea that all people have equal rights and deserve their fair treatment. Then patriotism. Literature often expressed love for the emerging nation and encouraged people to sacrifice for their success. Then democracy. Many writers supported the idea of democratic government in which citizens participate in decision making. The Declaration of Independence is one of the most important documents in the American history, written primarily by Thomas Jefferson in 1776. It explained why the colonies were separating from Britain. The document contains three main sections. First was statement of principles about human rights. Second was list of grievances against the British king. And third was declaration of independence of the colonies. The declaration not only influenced American politics but also inspired democratic movements around the world. The revolutionary period had a lasting impact on American literature. Firstly, It helped create a unique American literary voice separate from British traditions. Before this time, most colonial writers imitated British styles and themes. After the Revolution, American writers began focusing on their own national identity. Secondly, it established literature as a powerful tool for political and social change. Writers demonstrated that words could influence public opinion and shape history. Thirdly, the ideas expressed in revolutionary writings continued to influence later history movements in the United States. Revolutionary period laid the foundation for later developments in American literature. The sense of national identity created during this time influenced the national or romantic period that followed in the early 19th century. Later writers continued exploring themes such as democracy, individual freedom, and the American experience. This period is one of the most significant stages in the development of American literature. After covering the two main periods of American literature, and they were colonial and revolutionary periods, let's move on to the third one. It is early national period, which spans from 1776 to 1828. The early national period in American literature is also known as the Federalist era, which began after the American Revolution. This was a crucial time when the United States had just gained independence from Great Britain and was trying to establish its own identity politically, socially, and culturally. Literature played a vital role in shaping and expressing this new national identity. During this period, American writers moved away from the strong influence of British literature and began to create works that reflected American experiences, values, and aspirations. The central aim of literature was to define what it meant to be an American citizen in a newly independent nation. One of the most important features of this period was emphasis on nationalism. Writers expressed pride in the nation's independence and highlighted the ideals of freedom, equality, and democracy. These ideas were strongly influenced by Enlightenment philosophy, which valued reason, logic, and individual rights. Political writings dominated this era. Many authors wrote essays, speeches, and pamphlets to discuss the structure of government and the rights of citizens. For example, Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, a powerful pamphlet that encouraged independence from British rule. Similarly, Thomas Jefferson played a major role in drafting the Declaration of Independence, which expressed the ideas of liberty and equality. Another key feature of this period was Benjamin Franklin. His work, The Autobiography, reflects a spirit of self-reliance, hard work, and moral improvement. Franklin's writing represents the idea of the self-made man, which became an important part of the American dream. As the nation grew more stable, literature also began to include imaginative and fictional works. Washington Irving is considered one of the most American writers to gain international recognition. His stories, such as Rip Van Winkle and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, blend American settings with folklore and imagination, helping to create a unique American literary style. Similarly, James Fenimore Cooper contributed to the development of American fiction through his novel The Last of the Mohicans. His works focused on frontier life, nature, and the relationship between settlers and Native Americans. These themes highlighted the vast and untamed landscapes of America, which became an important subject in later literature. The themes of this period are deeply connected to the nation's early struggles and hopes. Common themes include freedom and independence, democracy, individualism, patriotism, and nature. Writers often celebrated the beauty of American land and the opportunities it offered. In addition, there was a growing belief that literature should serve a purpose. It was not just for entertainment but also for educating citizens and promoting moral values. Writers felt a responsibility to contribute to the development of a strong and unified nation. The early national period is significant because it marks the beginning of a distinct American literary tradition. It laid the foundation for later literary movements such as Romanticism, where imagination and emotion became more prominent. In conclusion, the early national period in American literature reflects the journey of a new nation trying to define itself. Through political writings, autobiographies, and national fictions, early writers expressed the ideas and challenges of the time. They helped shape a national identity that valued freedom, equality, and self reliance. This period was not only important for its historical context but also for establishing the roots of American literature as a unique and independent voice. Thanks. This was all for this video. Do subscribe to my channel, The Educational 310. Representing a powerful movement that emphasized emotion, imagination, nature, individualism, and a deep spiritual connection with the world, it was Romantic period of generally spanning from the early 19th century, roughly 1800 to 1865. And this period has emerged as a reaction against the rationalism and order of Enlightenment. Romanticism in America developed its own distinct identity, developed by the nation's unique historical, cultural, and geographical context. The Romantic period in American literature arose during a time of significant transformation. The United States was still a young nation. Having gained independence in the late 18th century, the early 1800s saw westward expansion, industrial growth, and increasing political confidence. These changes fostered a desire to establish a unique cultural and literary voice separate from European traditions. American writers began to explore themes that reflected their environment, vast landscapes, frontier life, and democratic ideas. The Romantic movement in America differed slightly from its European counterpart in that it strongly emphasized optimism, self reliance, and the potential for human progress. The key features of American Romanticism was, and one of the most refining characteristics of Romantic literature is its focus on emotion and imagination. Writers believed that intuition and feeling were more important than logic and reason. They celebrated creativity and viewed the imagination as a powerful tool for understanding truth. Another central feature is the importance of nature. Nature was not merely a backdrop but a living force that could inspire, heal, and teach. Romantic writers often portrayed nature as pure and uncorrupted in contrast to the growing industrial society. Now, individualism also played a crucial role. The Romantic period emphasized the value of individual personal freedom and self expression. Writers explored the inner world of characters, focusing on their thoughts, emotions, and moral struggles. Additionally, Romantic literature often includes elements of supernatural and mysterious ghosts, dreams, and unexplained events. They were used to evoke emotions and explore deeper truth about human existence. American Romanticism can be divided into several important sub-movements, each with its own themes and characteristics. First of all, it was transcendentalism. Transcendentalism was a philosophical and literary movement that emerged in the 1830s and 1840s. It emphasized the belief that truth could be found through intuition and personal experience rather than through organized religion or scientific reasoning. Transcendentalists believed in the inherent goodness of people and nature. They encouraged self reliance, simplicity, and a deep spiritual connection with the natural world. Their writings often reflect optimism and faith in human potential. Then, secondly, dark romanticism. In contrast to the optimism of transcendentalism, romanticism explored the darker aspects of human nature. Writers in this movement focused on sin, guilt, psychological complexity, and the potential of evil within individuals. They often portrayed characters struggling with internal conflicts and moral dilemmas. Their works include elements of horror, mystery, and the supernatural, creating a sense of tension and unease. Then, thirdly, American Gothic. Closely related to dark romanticism, American Gothic literature emphasizes fear, isolation, and the grotesque. It often includes haunted settings, mysterious events, and psychological terror. This genre reflects the anxieties and uncertainties of a rapidly changing society. Now, themes. The Romantic period is rich with themes that reflect the concerns and values of the time. Nature as a source of truth. Writers saw nature as a teacher and source of spiritual insight. Spending time in nature was believed to bring individuals closer to truth and self understanding. Secondly, the power of the individual. Romantic literature celebrates independence and self reliance. Characters often seek to break free from societal constraints and discover their true selves. The third theme was emotion over reason. Feelings and intuition are valued more than logic. Writers in this era believed that emotional experiences could reveal deeper truths. Then, next theme was the supernatural. Many works include mysterious and unexplained elements that challenge rational understanding and evoke wonder or fear. Next theme was conflict between good and evil. Especially in dark romanticism, writers explored the moral struggles between individuals and the presence of evil in the world. And it was a struggle within the individuals and the evil which was present in the world. Then important writers and their contributions during this era. The Romantic period produced many influential American writers whose works continue to be studied and admired today. The major figure is Ralph Waldo Emerson, whose essays laid the foundation for Transcendentalism. His works emphasize self reliance, individuality, and the spiritual significance of nature. Henry David Thoreau, another key transcendentalist, is known for his reflections on simple living and his deep connection with nature. His writings encourage readers to live authentically and independently. Nathaniel Hawthorne is a prominent figure in dark romanticism. His works often explore themes of sin, guilt, and moral complexity set against the backdrop of Puritan society. Edgar Allan Poe is one of the most famous writers of dark romanticism and Gothic literature. His stories and poems are known for their focus on mystery, horror, and the psychological depths of the human mind. Herman Melville is another important writer whose works combine romantic themes with philosophical exploration. His writings often examine the struggle between good and evil and the limits of human knowledge. Walt Whitman represents a later phase of Romanticism and is known for his celebration of individuality, democracy, and the human spirit. His poetry reflects a deep appreciation for life and the natural world. Emily Dickinson, though unique in style, also reflects romantic ideals through her exploration of emotion, nature, and the inner self. Her poetry is introspective and often deals with themes of death and immortality. Now, romantic writers often used rich descriptive language to evoke emotions and create vivid imagery. Their works were filled with symbolism and metaphors, allowing readers to interpret deeper meanings. They also experimented with new literary forms and structures. Poetry became more personal and expressive, while prose works often focused on character development and psychological depths. American landscape played a crucial role in shaping romantic literature. So there was an influence of nature and landscape. The vast forests, mountains, and the rivers of the United States inspired writers to explore themes of freedom, exploration, and spiritual connection. Nature was seen as a refuge from the pressures of society and a place where individuals could find peace and clarity. This connection to the natural world is one of the defining features of American Romanticism. Then, social and cultural impact. The Romantic period had a lasting impact on American culture and society. In the series of 9 important periods of American literature, let's move on to the new one, realism and naturalism. These movements marked a decisive shift from romanticized storytelling and towards a more honest and often harsher portrayal of life. Together, they transformed literature into a powerful tool for examining society, human behavior, and the forces that shape our lives. And to understand realism and naturalism, we first need to briefly consider that came before them. Early American literature was dominated by Romanticism, which was a movement that emphasized imagination, emotion, individual heroism, and the beauty of nature. Writers often portrayed life as idealized, dramatic, and full of moral clarity. However, as America underwent rapid industrialization, urbanization, and social change after the Civil War, this idealized view no longer felt accurate. Cities grew crowded, poverty became more visible, and new social tensions emerged. Writers began to feel that literature should reflect real life as it is lived, not as it is imagined. This desire for truth gave rise first to realism and later to naturalism, which took realism even further. Now, what is realism? It developed in the late 19th century and it's a literary movement focused on depicting everyday life with accuracy and honesty. Realist writers sought to represent ordinary people in believable situations, avoiding exaggerated plots or overly emotional language. And instead of heroes and grand adventures, realism gives us common individuals, workers, families, children, and people navigating daily struggles. The goal was not to escape reality but to examine it closely. Now, some key features of realism. First, realism emphasizes ordinary life. The characters are not kings or mythical heroes but everyday individuals. Their problems are familiar financial difficulties, relationships, social expectations. Second, realism values detailed observation. Writers carefully describe settings, behavior, and dialogue to create a sense of authenticity. The language is often straightforward and conversational. Third, realist literature often explores social issues. It reflects concerns such as class differences, gender roles, and moral dilemmas without offering easy solutions. Finally, realism avoids clear moral judgments. Instead of telling readers what to think, it represents situations and allows them to draw their own conclusions. Some of the most important figures in American realism include Mark Twain, who used humor and regional dialects to portray life along the Mississippi River. His works highlight both the charm and hypocrisy of society. William Dean Howells, often called the father of American realism, who believed literature should represent life truthfully. Henry James, who focused on psychological realism, exploring the inner thoughts and motivations of his characters. These writers helped establish realism as a dominant literary force, emphasizing on authenticity over idealism. While realism aimed to portray life accurately, some writers felt it did not go far enough. They wanted to explore not just what life looks like, but why people behave the way they do. And this led to the development of naturalism, a more intense and scientific expansion of realism. Naturalism was influenced by new ideas in science and philosophy, particularly Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, which emphasized survival, adaptation, and the role of environment. Naturalist writers began to see human beings as shaped by forces beyond their control, such as heredity, environment, and social conditions. Now, what is naturalism? It's a literary movement that portrays life as determined by forces like biology, environment, and chance. It often presents a more pessimistic view of human existence. In naturalist literature, characters are not entirely free to make their own choices. Instead, they are influenced or even controlled by circumstances such as poverty, social class, and instinct. Naturalism shares some features with realism but takes them further. First, it emphasizes determinism. Determinism is the idea that human behavior is shaped by forces beyond individual control. Secondly, naturalist works often focus on extreme situations such as poverty, violence, or survival struggles. These situations reveal the raw, instinctual life of human nature. Third, naturalism presents a scientific outlook. Writers observe characters almost like scientists studying subjects, analyzing how they respond to their environment. Finally, naturalism often has a pessimistic tone. Unlike realism, which can be neutral, naturalism frequently highlights the harshness of life and the limitations of human freedom. Important American naturalist writers include Stephen Crane, whose works explore fear, survival, and human vulnerability; Frank Norris, who examined the impact of economic forces on individuals; then Theodore Dreiser, who portrayed characters struggling against social and economic pressures. Their works often depict individuals trapped by circumstances, unable to escape the forces shaping their lives. Although realism and naturalism are closely related, there are important differences between them. Realism focuses on depicting life as it is, while naturalism seeks to explain why life unfolds the way it does. Realist characters generally have some degree of choice and moral agency. In contrast, naturalist characters are often controlled by external forces. Realism tends to be more balanced and or neutral in tone, whereas naturalism often leans towards pessimism, emphasizing struggle and survival. In simple terms, realism observes life while naturalism analyzes it through the lens of science and determinism. After we have completed the five important periods of American literature, let's move on to the sixth one, and that is modern period. Modern period in American literature roughly spans from 1914 to 1945, though some scholars extend it into the mid 20th century. This period emerged as a reaction against the traditional beliefs, values, and literary styles of the 19th century. The world was undergoing rapid transformation due to industrialization, urbanization, scientific developments, and most importantly, the devastating effects of the First World War and the Second World War. These effects deeply influenced writers, making literature was more experimental, realistic, and psychologically complex. Modern American literature reflects a sense of disillusionment, alienation, fragmentation, and loss of faith in old institutions such as religion, family, and government. The horrors of war shattered the belief in human progress and rationality. Writers began exploring the darker side of human existence and questioning the meaning of life. One of the major features of this period, that is modern period, is experimentation in form and style. Traditional storytelling methods were replaced by innovative techniques such as stream of consciousness, symbolism, imagism, multiple perspectives. Writers were no longer interested in linear narratives or simple moral lessons. Instead, they focused on the inner thoughts and emotions of characters. A significant literary movement of this period was the Lost Generation, referring to the writers of this era disillusioned after World War I. Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald are most famous writers of this group. Hemingway's works such as The Sun Also Rises and A Farewell to Arms depict themes of war, courage, loneliness, and emotional restraint. And Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby is a brilliant portrayal of the emptiness behind the American dream and moral decay of the Jazz Age. Another important writer of the modern period is William Faulkner, known for his complex narratives and exploration of the American South. His novels such as The Sound and the Fury and As I Lay Dying use stream of consciousness and non-linear storytelling to depict psychological depth and family conflicts. Poetry also underwent a radical transformation during this era. T.S. Eliot, though born in America and later becoming British, had a profound influence on modern poetry. His poem The Waste Land reflects the spiritual emptiness and cultural crisis of modern civilization. Ezra Pound prompted Imagism, a movement emphasizing precise language and clear imagery. The Harlem Renaissance was another remarkable development within the modern period. It was a cultural and literary movement celebrating African American identity and creativity. Writers like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Claude McKay highlighted racial pride, social injustice, and black cultural heritage. Langston Hughes used jazz rhythms and everyday speech to give voice to American and African experiences. The drama also flourished during this period. Eugene O'Neill became one of America's greatest dramatists. His plays, including The Hairy Ape and Long Day's Journey into Night, focus on family tensions, identity crisis, and psychological sufferings. Now, the themes of the modern era include alienation and loneliness, psychological conflict, loss of faith and uncertainty, search for identity, criticism of materialism, and disillusionment after war. Language during this period became more symbolic, condensed, and layered with meaning. Writers tried to capture the fragmented nature of modern life. To conclude this video, the modern period of American literature marks a revolutionary phase in literary history. It broke away from conventional styles and introduced bold experiments in language, structure, and theme. The writers of this era reflected the complexities, anxieties, and changing realities of the modern world. Their works continued to influence literature globally and remain relevant because they address universal human struggles in times of crisis and change. One of the periods of American literature which developed as a reaction against the ideas of the modern period was the postmodern period. The postmodern period in American literature began after the World War II, mainly from the 1940s to the present. This period developed as a repercussion against the ideas of modern period. While modern writers searched for order and meaning in a chaotic world, postmodern writers believed that the life is uncertain, fragmented, and often without fixed meaning. The word postmodern means after modernism. It reflects a break from traditional styles, beliefs, and literary rules. Writers of this period questioned truth, reality, history, and identity. They believed there is no single universal truth. Instead, every person creates their own meaning. Several major events influenced this period, postmodern period literature. First was World War II and the destruction caused by atomic bombs. Then Cold War tensions, civil rights movements, feminist movement, technological advancement and media growth. Then globalization and consumer culture. These events made people question authority, progress, religion, and traditional values. Now, the main features of postmodern literature. Firstly, there is fragmentation. Postmodern works are often broken into pieces rather than following a clear beginning, middle, and end. The storyline may seem disordered. Then, irony and humor. Writers of this period use satire, black humor, and irony to show the absurdity of life. Then, metafiction. A text may draw attention to itself as fiction. The writers may remind readers that they are reading a created story, and this is metafiction. Then, intertextuality. Postmodern writers borrow ideas, characters, and styles from other texts. Magical realism. Ordinary life is mixed with strange or magical elements. Then, questioning reality. The line between reality and imagination becomes unclear. Multiple perspectives. There is no single viewpoint or fixed truth. Then, pastiche. Mixing different genres, styles, and voices in one work. Now, coming to the themes of postmodern literature: identity crisis, alienation, loss of meaning, consumerism, media influence, technology and artificial reality, power and politics. Now, major postmodern writers and their works. First one is Thomas Pynchon, known for complex and experimental writing. He has written Gravity's Rainbow, The Crying of Lot 49. Then Kurt Vonnegut, he used dark humor and science fiction. Slaughterhouse-Five and Cat's Cradle are his writings. Then Toni Morrison, he focused on race, memory, and identity. His writings were Beloved and Song of Solomon. Then Don DeLillo wrote about media and consumer culture. White Noise and Libra were his writings. Then John Barth, he was famous for metafiction and he wrote Lost in the Funhouse. Now, postmodern literature changed the way people read and understand texts. It challenged traditional storytelling and encouraged readers to think critically. This period reflects the uncertainty and complexity of modern life. So, the postmodern period is one of experimentation, diversity, and questioning. It rejects fixed meanings and celebrates multiple interpretations. American postmodern literature mirrors a world shaped by war, technology, media, and rapid social change. It remains highly influential in contemporary literature. This period generally refers to literature written from 1945 to the present day, and this period began after World War II. Last and concluding period of American literature, and that is contemporary period. It emerged when America was emerging as a global power and society experienced major changes in politics, technology, culture, and race relations and identity also. Writers of this period reflect the complexities of modern life, including war trauma, alienation, multiculturalism, feminism, globalization, environmental concerns, and the impact of technology. After World War II, America entered a period of rapid development. The country experienced economic growth, urbanization, scientific advancement, and the rise of mass media such as television, cinema, and later the internet. However, this progress also created social tensions. The Cold War, the threat of nuclear war, the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, and feminist movements influenced writers deeply. Contemporary literature reflects a world full of uncertainty. Unlike earlier periods, there is no single dominant style. Writers experiment with new forms, fragmented narratives, and diverse voices. Now, some major features of contemporary literature. First one is diversity and multiculturalism. One of the most important features is the inclusion of voices from different racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. African American, Asian American, Native American, Latino, and immigrant writers became prominent. Then, realism and social issues. Contemporary writers often focus on real life issues such as racism, poverty, gender inequality, war, and identity crisis. Then, individual identity. Questions like who am I and where do I belong are central themes. Characters often struggle with identity, loneliness, and self discovery. Then, number fourth, experimental writing styles. Writers use non linear plots, stream of consciousness, unreliable narrators, and open endings. Then, feminism and gender issues. Many female writers explore women's rights, gender roles, and female identity. Then, technology in modern life. Literature of this period reflects the influence of machines, media, internet, culture, and modern communication. Then, lastly, global perspective. Writers of this period no longer focus on America, they explore global conflicts, migration, and cultural change. Major themes of this contemporary period are alienation and loneliness, identity crisis, war and trauma, race and discrimination, family conflict, consumerism and materialism, love and relationships, environmental crisis, then technology and artificial life. These are some important themes of this period. Now, important literary movements within contemporary period are number 1, postmodernism. Postmodern writers reject fixed truths and traditional storytelling. They use irony, parody, metafiction, and fragmented structure. Features of this movement are uncertainty, playfulness, multiple meanings, and mixing of reality and fiction. Then, minimalism. This style uses simple language, short sentences, and limited description. Features of this movement are economy of words, ordinary life situations, and emotional restraint. Then, multicultural literature. Writers represent different communities and identities. Now, some major writers and their works during this contemporary period. First one is Toni Morrison. He is important African American novelist and he wrote Beloved and Song of Solomon. She explores slavery, memory, race, and identity. Then Alice Walker. She has written The Color Purple, focuses on black women's experiences and empowerment. Then Sylvia Plath. And the written works are The Bell Jar, poetry collections, and themes include mental struggle, identity, and womanhood. Then number 4, Arthur Miller. He has written Death of a Salesman and The Crucible, and he is known for criticism of American dream and social morality. Then Tennessee Williams, and the written work are A Streetcar Named Desire and The Glass Menagerie, and the main focus was on fragile characters and emotional conflicts. Then J.D. Salinger, and the written works, mainly the written work was on The Catcher in the Rye and represents teenage alienation and rebellion. Then Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five has been written, anti-war themes with dark humor. Then Maya Angelou, she has written I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, themes of race, trauma, and resilience. Then Emmy Jan, and The Joy Luck Club has been written, and she explores immigrant identity and family relationships. Zumpa Lahiri, interpreter of melodies, and The Namesake are the written works, and main focus was on Indian American immigrant experiences. Now coming to the poetry in contemporary period, the contemporary poetry became free from strict forms and rhyme schemes. Poets focus on personal emotions, politics, and everyday life. Important poets of this period are Sylvia Plath, Allen Ginsberg, Maya Angelou, and Rennie Rich. The features are free verse, personal voice, and social criticism. Now coming to The drama in contemporary period and drama of this period reflects social realities and psychological complexity. Important dramatists of this period are Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, and Edward Albee. Major themes were family conflict, American dream failure, and existential crisis. Now, coming to the significance of contemporary literature. Contemporary literature is important because it reflects the rapidly changing world. It gives voice to marginalized communities and questions traditional beliefs. It connects literature with modern issues such as race, feminism, technology, and globalization. It also makes literature more inclusive and experimental, allowing writers freedom to break old rules and create new forms of storytelling. So, to conclude this video, the contemporary period of American literature is rich, diverse, and dynamic. It reflects the complexity of modern society and human experience. From postmodern experimentation to multicultural voices, this period captures the struggles, hopes, fears, and transformations of contemporary life. It remains highly relevant because it addresses issues that continue to shape our world today.